All right, teammates. We are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you already know what goes down when you hit the play button on this show. Whatever you may be going through, whatever challenges, difficulties, whatever may be going on in your life, we are here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone, and you do not give up on whatever it is you're going through, because there are people who have been there and done that and are here to serve you in a way that you need to be helped or be served and things like that. So all that being said, today I have a Mr. Rob Tracz, right? And he is coined the phrase prime performance. And you guys know I do a lot of thought leadership work. I have been in the business for a couple of I still consider myself fairly new, but I've been in it for got some skin in the game. I'm telling you, Rob, I have not heard the concept of the term prime performance before, so I'm happy you're on and all of that. So all that being said, welcome to the show, man. Before I make the intro too long, welcome to the show.
Hey man, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and feel honored to share some of my experience and insights with your listeners here.
Yes, and like I said, I mentioned, some of the work you're doing now with Prime Performance, but I want to take you back a little bit and go back to your background, because there's a lot of synergy that we have in regards to some of the things that we may have learned as high school football players. And it's crazy to think about it, because I'm out here in West Palm Beach, and my high school, I grew up in Maryland, and they actually just played a game in Miami. So I got a chance to see them this past August, and I got a chance to see how big the program is becoming. And I talked to the guys and all that, and some of the people that coach me, and we were just kind of reflecting on how much you learned during that time. So I'll give you the microphone for a second to talk a little bit about your background, the things that you learned, and how it kind of shaped you as an adult now.
Yeah, I'll take it back a little bit before
Mm-hmm.
high school, if you don't mind with that.
Please.
Um, yeah, actually, I was born just outside of Philly and lived there for a while until parents got divorced at a super young age. I
Hmm.
was bouncing around a bunch of different schools, like the early grades, like kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth grade.
Oh,
Um, and as you can imagine, shifting schools every year, it makes it pretty difficult to make friends and let alone maintain any friends too.
absolutely.
So come like fourth grade, all I care about is just like video games, because that's all I got. So I got video games. It's just me, my mom, and my sister,
Hmm.
and we find ourselves plopped in this small town upstate New York called Highland. And my only friend really was this little kid named Sean Caswell, and he liked video games and played like Madden and all the stuff back then.
Hmm.
But I never actually played football. And the more that I hung out with this kid, Sean, the more that I kind of got pushed into playing football. And keep in mind, though, I was this short, little, out of shape, dweeby kid. And thank God that Sean's dad was the football coach, because he was able to drive me to practice and whatnot.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget the first day of football practice. I learned two valuable things that day. Number one, you can't wear jeans to football practice. So I showed up to football practice wearing jeans, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Right.
This, the second thing I learned, though, not having very many friends and
Yeah.
not being in very good shape, I noticed that the kids that were more popular, the ones that knew everybody, they knew the plays, they got to play a lot more.
Hmm.
They were in better shape. So I could barely even finish like the warm up lap in Pop Warner.
Hmm.
So, but what I could do though is I could do some of those jumping jacks. I could do some of those push ups and sit ups. Not as many as I'm supposed to be doing, but I kind of got myself going into it.
Hmm.
And that's really what kind of clicked in my head, that I need to start taking care of myself and start pushing myself physically. Because a year or two later, I found myself in a starting position as a running back and helped our team go on to like undefeated seasons in modified, which is not that crazy, but
Right.
going into high school, being the first team to win a section title for our class,
Right.
and um, and then eventually going on to playing college football and a lot of other sports too.
Right.
But that simple act of pushing myself and getting active and moving myself
Hmm.
allowed me to choose the discomfort of putting it ahead of time which
Yeah.
then brought over to football, wrestling, lacrosse, and eventually rugby and
Hmm.
a lot of other sports where I became a leader in all those different
Hmm.
teams and winning different championships, the state championship in rugby, and a bunch of other things too. So
Hmm.
that football taught me the discipline, it taught me the grit, it taught me the socializing, the teamwork, the bringing everybody together, the becoming more intentional with what I'm consuming kind of thing,
Hmm.
and all those other things.
So walk us through some of the examples you would that you're able to share because you said a lot of great things there, and I want people to really understand how sports affects you outside of your just doing well and maybe going pro. Actually, I just finished an interview in which there's a big USC fan, and we were talking about how 1% of people are going to go pro. However, the things that you're able to do in your day to day and the things that you're able to learn, the way you're able to socialize, the way you're able to meet people, and the confidence that you grow. You, like you just mentioned, came from a broken home and you were able to really, I mean, it seems like it really didn't affect you as much when you started to see the confidence or you started to build some confidence in sports. So, how were things for you as you were going through school and you start to like, what examples can you share in terms of how things were going for you in school as you're starting to become kind of known as a sports guy?
Yeah, I kind of breezed past it briefly, but yeah, as soon as I started getting in better shape, I started
Yeah.
playing a little bit more, and
Hmm.
then that little bit of playing time started to get to a little bit more attention from everybody else on the field, on the
Yeah.
team. Then the better I got, the more time I got to play. The more
Hmm.
time I got to play, the more the other guys on the team would want to hang out with me outside of practice, outside
Yeah.
of the games.
Acceptance. Yeah.
And the more of that happens, the more birthday parties I got invited to. So as a
Yeah.
young kid, in order for me to be able to go to birthday parties, I had to make sure my grades were up. Otherwise, I couldn't go. So
Yeah.
just the
Shout out
simple
to
fact
mom
of
on that
me,
one. Shout out to mom and
yeah,
dad on that for sure.
definitely. So yeah, so I needed to make sure that my grades were still up there too, and then that just kind of pushed me. That same grit, that same discipline of working hard
Mhm.
went to undergrad, and then undergrad graduated, and then I was like, okay, well now what? And then I
Yeah.
decided to go back to school for grad school, and everybody was out partying on Friday, Saturday nights, and I was in grad school, and I had to work through grad school, so I didn't have the time necessarily
Mhm.
during the day to get my studies in.
Yeah.
So I would bring my buddies to the bars at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night.
Mm.
I would go home, go to sleep. I'd wake up at like 3, 4 a.m., pick them up from the bar, drop them off at home, and then I would do all my studying and catching up on my homework from like 4 a.m. to like 8 a.m. And then I'd go to work and then internship and then so on. So
Yeah.
I got that discipline
Mhm.
from
From that.
football, from wrestling, early morning workouts, all
Mhm.
those things.
Yeah, you actually beat me to it because I know because I played at Stony Brook. I know a lot of people that actually transferred from Stony Brook to Cortland, and actually I think my coach played. He played at Cortland. There's a lot of obviously well now Stony Brook's kind of a high end FCS program. They're in a bigger division, but there were times probably when I played there where I thought it would be possible that Cortland's D3, right?
They just won a D3 national championship
Yeah,
last
that's what I'm
year.
saying. There'd be times where
Yeah.
I felt like they would beat several FCS programs because nowadays, what I've learned having gone through the system, that whether it's D3, D2, or FCS, college football is pretty much college football. And when you get a powerhouse Division 3 program, you're probably you're gonna have some FCS talent on that team. It's just not have as much depth and all that. But I'm bringing all that up to say, the likelihood of you playing in the NFL was probably not there when you're in Cortland. So during those years, how would you describe kind of the way it ended and that next decision? Because I could tell you for me, it was, man, the beginning of the season when I realized, look, I'm not going to be starting. I was just looking around and said, man, I played this game since 7 years old. And I almost get teary eyed thinking about it now where I realize this is it, man. I got, I got nothing left to give as a player, and I have to figure some shit out for what it is I'm going to be doing once this game is over. Can you kind of describe that moment? You had already mentioned, you went to grad school and all that. What was that transition like for you?
Yeah. So when I was playing football, I kind of knew this is probably going to be the end of the line
Mhm.
for football at least because of and like it wasn't even a big program, but still like the morning lifts and like having to go to the position meetings and then full
Right.
team meetings and then actual practice and then having to work after practice and then schoolwork, all that stuff became a lot for me. So when I retired from football,
Mhm.
I shifted over and started playing rugby because I thought this would be a little
Oh,
less
cool.
serious.
Okay. Mm.
Yeah, which it ended up not being. And then that still became it became a different thing because it was still the pushing ourselves hard and
Mhm.
being competitive on and off the field, still socializing, getting together, and that family aspect. Because you remember, like I was saying, like my
Mhm.
family was broken at an early age. So
Yeah.
leaning into sports, once I found my sports family, that
Mhm.
became my new family. And going through shifting to college, trying to create a new family there, having all these other distractions going through me, I lost that part.
Mhm.
So when I went to grad school, I was like, all right, well, what do I want to do? Originally, I was going to get into nutrition and be a registered dietitian,
Mhm.
but my one of my mentors from an internship was telling me, hey, you want to be a coach? Go back to school, get your master's in exercise science,
Hmm.
and you can learn the most of the nutrition stuff on your own, enough to kind of help people.
Hmm.
But if you're looking for the team, if you want to be helping others and you want to be around sports still, you need to
Mhm.
be a coach.
Mhm.
And that's why it was an easy thing for me because I was able to stay in the gym where I grew up,
Right.
working out all the time. I was able to get around athletes, different teams, different sports and
Yeah.
such, but still they were all working to get better, get stronger, get faster,
Mhm.
work on their food, their inputs and stuff like that.
Right.
So that was easy transition for me. And then since that strength and conditioning world, now with prime performance coaching, that's a little bit more of like entrepreneurship, but it's still the same concepts of like building that resiliency, being intentional with your consumption, like building efficient like rules and routines to live your life by, like
Mhm.
social support and all those things. So that was kind of like the natural progression for me.
Yeah, so that and I'm glad you brought that up because well, first of all, shout out to the mentor for telling you that because that is very important. You know, when it comes to nutrition, it's not that it's a bad topic, but it's really more so about the discipline of how you're gonna in science. I mean, there's a lot of nutritionists out there. More so, it's about the discipline that the person, the client, that the person has, and what they're actually working out for. Like I'm training for a marathon now, so I know I don't need to be I need to be eating a lot of veggies, a lot of greens, and things like that. I didn't need a nutritionist per se to tell me that. I need a coach to tell me that. And a coach to get in my butt, make sure I'm doing my miles and all that kind of stuff. So the question I do have though is because we're coming from the sports world and the football world, when it comes to finding clients, we have kind of the luxury of finding people that were initially motivated by playing sports. Now, like you had just mentioned, transitioning into the entrepreneurship world, and I've worked at several gyms, now it becomes a challenge possibly to get just regular people to show up at a gym, to get regular people to sign up for sessions and stuff like that. So when you're talking about prime performance coaching, it's not, I'm assuming it's not just athletes. When were you able to transition to say, okay, I don't just necessarily want to train athletes, but now I could just train everybody? You know, the mother that just had the baby wants to get her body right, or the dad that wants to stay in shape for his wife, or you know, just anybody that's actually looking to work out. When was that? When were you able to transition into that?
Yeah, that one that came before I started with Prime Performance, before I started that whole idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that was just in in the strength and conditioning world, typically you're going to take two different routes. You're either going collegiate and trying to get to like a pro team, something like that, or you're going private sector.
Yeah.
And I decided to go private sector, and it just brought me to a wider range of people. And then I'm working with kids going D1, a couple ex-professional players, people going to like trying to get to the Olympics,
Mm-hmm.
high level guys,
Right.
and putting in a lot of work, putting in like actually genuinely caring too,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just like, hey, got to get their bench up, got to get that stuff up too. It's like checking in, making sure like, yeah, are you actually getting the sleep you need to? Are you doing
Yeah.
this? Are you doing that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you expect to be doing this and that if you're doing X, Y, and Z? Having
Exactly.
those conversations with these athletes, that got them talking, and then introduced, obviously you seeing different family members and such. And then
Uh,
all of a sudden, high school kid going D1, his parents are athletes or ex-athletes, and they want to start training. So then
Hmm.
talking with them and then younger siblings and things like that.
Huh.
So it was a slow progression, but it
Right.
was a progression. And
Right.
then from there, when I decided to get more into what I'm doing now, that was a little bit harder of a switch because that took a little bit more time because I was conflicting with my identity as a coach. Like, because I
Hmm.
still have the fitness and nutrition background, but what I'm teaching now is more than that. And then it was a little hard because people are still coming to me for fitness and nutrition,
Right.
and then I'm like, that's good, but we also need to look at this over here. And then
Yeah.
that was like a challenging time for me. But
Now,
yeah.
was this at a gym that you were doing this? And I'm asking because I used to, I don't, you're probably familiar with it, but I used to be a trainer at a gym named D1 Sports and Training. And the way it worked is they had these celebrity athletes. I'm not, I don't think they actually had any in the closest one in New York, I think was Bill Parisi Speed School or something like that. But basically, the way it would work is they had these athletes and they would endorse these gyms and they would offer services. They would call it for the athletes, but they would have me do boot camps and stuff like that. So, was this something that you were just going out and being a personal trainer on, kind of a personal trainer, but was it through a gym that might have been kind of holding you back from what it is you were trying to do?
Um, so I guess so I was at a gym that you could consider to be like a D1 almost. But it was much smaller. It was not a it was sole gym, not a franchise or anything.
All right.
Um, but we were in a pretty decent area where there was a lot of parents who were involved with the kids, and the kids were motivated to drive to get
Mm-hmm.
forward to the next level. So it was about being human and having more conversations. So like when
Yeah.
the parents are there to pick up the kids, or when the kids are back from college, is
Got it.
having those conversations, checking in, making sure you're developing those relationships. Like, oh, how is your mom? What's going on? Blah blah blah. Because
Mm-hmm.
that gets carried back, and I think it was just the communication was what really helped
Right.
like broaden the client base.
Yeah, it's amazing because even as I'm sitting there talking to you, I'm thinking back to how you grew up in the broken home, how you grew up, and now you're able to kind of empathize with other athletes that can be going through the same thing that some of them probably use it as an excuse. Oh, dad's not in my life, this, that, and the third. But you're able to speak to them and say, hey, what time are you going to school? What time? And I'm bringing all this up because you eventually transition into becoming a speaker, with keynotes and hosting workshops and things like that. So talk a little bit about how you were able to, first of all, develop the confidence to be a public speaker. Because actually, the previous guest I just had on, we were just talking about how most people would rather die than actually be a public speaker. So speak on when you actually decided, all right, look, let me transition all the work I'm doing, and now I'm going to address audiences and speak publicly and be very open and vulnerable about my story and all that good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I think I saw a statistic the other day that was like public speaking was the number one fear, and
Number
then
one fear.
like number like four was like dying, and number three was like spiders. So more
Right.
people are afraid of speaking in front of a crowd than they are dying from spiders, which is
Exactly. Yeah,
nuts.
yeah. It's crazy
Um,
too. I guess because I've been doing it for so long now, but I mean, yeah, I guess if I can go back to my older stuff, I can sort of see why people are like I'm not touching that.
yeah. I mean, I think it's just I, I I always found myself in like a leadership position for
Mhm.
sports. Like I was varsity captain for football. I was and lacrosse was junior senior year.
Oh man,
Wrestling,
we gotta bring up you, New Yorker man. Gotta bring up lacrosse, baby. Stony Brook did
yeah,
this lacrosse team was some badass. I actually did an NIL
it's huge.
deal with one of the lacrosse players this past year. Shout out to Michael, man.
Nice, nice. And yeah, and then wrestling, I was a 4 year varsity captain. So being captain on varsity as
Right.
a freshman, there's a lot of like pressure, and there's kids your age looking up to me. And that I'm always in front of everybody talking, leading practices and warm ups and things like
Mhm.
that. And I remember it was just it it was hard. It still is hard a little bit, but
Yeah,
when
the
you're on stage in
butterflies
front
never
of a
go anywhere.
couple,
Like you're always gonna have like before.
it's yeah, now it's more about like channeling and stuff. Like,
Hmm.
because I remember one time in football, our senior year, we just came off of our terrible season where we were expected to win state, and we ended up choking and not even making the playoffs. And so we came in my senior year, and now nobody's talking about us. No one's like, there's no hype or anything. We
Hmm.
lost the game, and then like everyone's dragging their heads and everything.
Mhm.
And I remember coach brought everybody in. He's like, okay, let's start practice. And I was like, no, 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 I got to say something. So I brought the team in and I'm just like, I didn't even know what was going on. I basically blacked out. And I've got kids now coming up at like weddings and such. They were like, Rob, I remember that one year when you brought everybody in. And I
Wow.
was just like, geez, that was nuts.
Yeah.
But that's so speaking has always been like something that I guess I can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, the nerves don't go away. You
All right.
channel it as excitement, and then that kind of motivates you. And once you really know what and are passionate about what you're talking about, and you're not trying to
Mhm.
recite anything, because when you recite something, then you're going to have that pressure of, oh, I meant to say it this way, or I should have said it that way.
Mhm.
When you just kind of flow and it comes from the heart, it's so much easier.
So when it comes to actually what you speak about, and I was looking before we started recording, I was making sure I checked out your. I do my research for you listeners, regular listeners. You guys already know I do my research on people before they come on. You actually have a system, like a process that you go by, like a curriculum that you go by. Can you kind of share a little bit about how you came up with it and how it ultimately helps people get where they're trying to go?
Yeah, yeah. So the whole system, I break it down really easy. It's just like you might recognize this: look good, feel good, do great things.
Oh man,
Deion
I did
Sanders
the
said
same thing with. I
something
mean,
similar.
so I'll break down just because you said I have to tell you how I came up with Swiftly, right? So you know how you had the skilled guys, right? That's
Yeah,
S. Skill guys, that's our wideouts, our DBs, our running backs. Well informed is WI, that's linebackers, quarterbacks, tight ends, the guys that need to know a lot of different things. Front team is basically the O lineman, D lineman. So it's Swift. All right. So to be great at one of them, you have to add LY. That's lift yourself. So if you're a quarterback, you got to be just as fast as the receivers. If you're a lineman, you got to be faster like a tight end and stuff like that. So that's where the whole Swiftly acronym it came from when I'd be at practice and they'd split us up into group A, B, and C, and they have us run together. And you see certain guys that were B group running with A group. And it was all football stuff. So I'm glad you said that because of how much football actually can. I mean, and it seems like it was just like you. It's like I woke up and realized, holy shit, this would work in business. So anyway, go ahead, go ahead. I'm excited for you to share this, man. I didn't know this.
yeah. Well, I'm glad you dove into that too,
Yeah,
because I was looking at your profile and I saw the plus LY, and I was
yeah,
like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that's for.
all right.
So
So
that's
now
good.
you got it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so I guess let me kind of like fast forward when I
Mm-hmm.
was in that one gym, private sector. Basically you get the taste of entrepreneurship. So you get the scheduled clients, you get to work with who you want to, you get to work as many hours as you want. I thought it was great. So I scaled my book of clients up to 60, 70 hour like work weeks. So I'm working like 10 to 12-hour days, 7 days a week.
Yes.
And that went on for almost 3 years straight. I'm talking like Christmas,
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I'm working all those holidays.
And just so
Um,
we're clear for you listeners, this isn't him just sitting down. You're actually demonstrating workouts. You're actually putting people through there. They're expecting a level of energy. You can't just sit back and expect these people to be coming back. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that as well.
yeah, and so it's yeah, it's you putting in the work. You got to demonstrate. You got to
Yeah.
lead the groups and everything. Yeah, so
Okay.
it takes a lot of energy, and burnout is real.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't believe it, so I kept going with it,
Uh-huh.
and I get caught in what I call robot mode, because robots they're great. They're very efficient. They're good at getting work done,
Hmm.
um, but they lack that awareness. They lack that human aspect,
Right.
and it's good. You can turn it into robot mode when it's time to work, and you really got to get it done. But
Mhm.
if you're in robot mode for too long, you lose yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where I was. I was 3 years into coaching. Well, 3 years into coaching at this rate. I've been
Mhm.
coaching for over 12 years,
Yeah.
but that that speed I was going was so bad that I deteriorated the relationship with this girl I was with. Friends and family, they stopped calling me. I stopped getting invited to birthday parties, weddings, and things like
Mhm.
that. And I was missing out on crucial experiences,
Yeah.
ones that I'll never get back.
Yeah.
Specifically, my dad having pancreatic cancer.
Oh my God.
He called me. I have his voicemail still, and he's
Mhm.
like, "Hey Rob, I got something serious I got to talk to you about. Give
Mhm.
me a call." And I knew it was bad. Find out it was stage 4 pancreatic cancer. passes away like 6 weeks later. Totally healthy before the phone call. Boom. And I was working, and I was actually driving from Connecticut down to Philadelphia to be by his bed while he was in hospice. And then I would drive back up to Connecticut to train clients, work all day, and then rush back down to Philadelphia, just like praying that he wouldn't pass away while I was in the car or at work. And and I didn't even let it phase me. As soon as he passed, I took a day off, and then I took a day off for the funeral, and then I went right back to work. And I went like that for like about another year
Hmm.
until it was a holiday weekend. People were traveling, barbecues, stuff like that. And I was sitting in my apartment in the dark on a Friday night because I was trying to fill my schedule for the
Hmm.
weekend, because that schedule was a distraction for me. And that
Yeah.
without that distraction, I opened up that room for reflection. And
Right.
in that reflection, I was like, what is going on here? Like,
Hmm.
this is not who I'm supposed to be.
Right.
And from that point, I was like, I'm not dedicating enough time to my own training.
Right.
So because I'm getting weaker, I'm getting softer. My energy is being sapped down. I can't hold up this level for all my clients all the time. I'm isolated and alone. There's nobody to be with me. Now that I do have a free weekend because everyone else is away, I'm by myself.
Hmm.
And terrible eating habits, like just all total mess.
Hmm.
So I was like, what do I got to do? And that's when I went back to what's worked for me over the years,
Hmm.
pushing my comfort zone, getting serious with my training, being intentional with my consumption, not just my meals and nutrition, but also my media too. So like the books, the music, the TV shows that I'm watching, pay attention to what I'm consuming in that realm, and make sure it's motivating, educational, and uplifting.
Hmm.
Then I need to get clear with what I was doing because I was just working to fill my schedule. I had no goals or anything. I was making money, but I didn't have any time to spend any money.
Right.
So I needed to get clear on my goals. Then I needed to optimize my habits, my schedule, make sure that I have free time for myself so I don't burn out and crash.
Hmm.
Then I can look at what's my support system. I I have a framework that I talk about on stage, my team
Right.
triangle. The top of that triangle are the coaches, the
Hmm.
mentors, role models that you would look up to. So who am I trying to model after? I didn't have a guide. I was just working to make money. I don't have anybody that I was trying to reflect after.
Hmm.
Next tier down is your captains. So who's your support that you can lean on? I didn't have anybody. Everybody's all gone. I kept telling everybody, no, I have to work. Family's gone, girlfriend's gone, friends are all gone. So I
Hmm.
needed to rebuild that. And then finally, the crowd, they're watching from the stands, but they're still there cheering you on. And I didn't have anybody. I just had my clients who were around, but they were in the crowd. So they were never my clients were there. They wanted to help me, but they didn't want to like guide me in the right
Right.
direction.
Right. They're well, the clients there, they want to get in shape, so they have an agenda for being in your life. So I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah, if I'm not there to train them,
Mhm.
then they're missing out, or
Okay.
they're working with somebody else or whatever it might be. So they still want me around, but they want me to take off everybody else's time. They want me there for their time.
Exactly. That was the difficult part. That is kind of the trade-off of being a trainer is the clients, and I love all my former members, former clients love, so don't take this the wrong way, but they have an agenda for being in your life. They want to get in shape and they want to be great. So, first of all, I do gotta, commend you and give you my condolences on your father. Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that. And I think the message needs to hit home with every man that's listening. You got to shut it down. You can't let work be the thing that defines you. You can't do it to the point where it's starting to affect the relationships with your family. And we as men, we need to come to that. All right, we got to come together and stop letting work be so dominant. And it's clear to me that you were able to figure that out. So as you go out and speak now, and you speak to people that are virtually going through a lot of the same things. What has been, and I was watching your speaking reel before we got on this, but what has been sort of the takeaways that they're getting from your speech that will kind of guide you into what's your next role or what's the next thing that you're going to be doing?
Yeah, the takeaways, it kind of varies on the audience,
Hmm.
and depending on what they're looking for. But the main things is getting to a point where you can look good, feel good, so you can finally do some great things. And people who are listening to this, they're probably pretty driven. They're probably athletic in the gym. They're probably pretty
Yes.
resilient.
Mm.
And they're probably intentional with what they're consuming. If they're listening to great podcasts like yours, they're probably
Right.
listening to good books and other things as well. So pieces of advice that somebody like your audience, I might say, is like
Mm.
dial in a little bit more on your clarity, on knowing yourself, so that you can draw those boundaries and those lines in the sand. So when you can tell when enough is enough. Um,
Yes. Yes.
I can share my framework for that if you want. I can run through
Yes.
that
Good.
real quick.
Yeah.
So I big Pirates of the Caribbean fan. When I was a kid, I used to always
Actually,
rock
but
an
yeah, I
eye
think I
patch.
remember hearing you say something about this. Was it movie 300? Sparta. I think yeah, that was that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so the framework is you fly your own flag. So I use the
Uh-huh.
acronym FLAG. F is your foundational values. So what do you hold true to yourself? So I'm a big acronym guy. So before I move on to the next one in FLAG,
Uh-huh.
my acronym for values is PACE.
Uh-huh.
So progressing towards mastery, P. A is adventure, seeking, so fun, so working hard and getting better, seeking fun.
Mhm.
C is contribution, so make sure that you're giving to others and not being selfish yourself.
Right.
And then E is empowerment, so choosing, having choice, being free, making decisions, and those are my core values for myself.
Yes.
Um, so that's F for
Yeah,
foundational
that's the base
values.
one. And just so we're clear, now because you just mentioned being an acronym guy, you are on the right show. There has been a ton of acronyms on this. In fact, I did a whole episode titled "The Power of Acronyms." So just want to make sure we make that clear. You regular listeners, you guys are spoiled, man. You guys have a ton of acronyms as you tune in. Now, if you first time listening, just know there's going to be a lot of acronyms that get dropped on the show. It's part of what makes this show this show. So anyway, go ahead. You're going with the flag one.
Yeah, so foundational values. L is lifestyle traits. So
Mhm.
what is it that makes you you? So like I drive a Jeep Wrangler. I think it's a little more rugged. It's fun. It's
Mhm.
you can take the roof doors off. That's how I kind of describe myself. I like to be a little tough. I like to still have fun and
Mhm.
go off roading and such. Favorite color is red. To me, that means it can be anger. It can be aggression. It can also be passionate and love
Mhm.
though, and those are other traits of me. So like favorite color, car, clothes, things like that.
Right.
Knowing those things helps you. Then
Mm.
A is your aspiration. So what are your goals? What are you trying to get to? Where are you currently at with those? And then what do you need to get to those?
That's
So
awesome. Yeah.
knowing those goals. And then G is growth opportunities. So
Right.
what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What can you develop and work on? So like
Mhm.
me, it's speaking. It's always been being active and pushing comfort zones.
Right.
And some weaknesses might be like technology or like social media stuff. So I've
Right.
hired some team members that help me with those things now. I'm
Mm.
playing to my strengths and working with my weaknesses.
Yes, that's a powerful acronym. And the thing is, and another point on acronyms is a lot of people can come up with them, but it's another thing to actually live the lifestyle. All right, there's anybody you can get little kids to come up with words and how this says it's living the life, living it and doing it full out. I mean, the first one that I talk about all the time is one my football coach came up with, which was water, work ethic, attitude, teamwork, enthusiasm, respect. And when it was the way he said it and the way we broke huddles and all that, and you think about how much we need water to survive, and again, he's not into the drinking, away from staying away from alcohol and all those kinds of things. All of that stuff circled around. It's one thing to come up with some acronym. It's another thing to actually live the lifestyle and be able to talk about it and explain it to other people. So, and I'm bringing all that up because I want to give you the opportunity a little bit to talk a bit about what's next. What do you see for the next phase of your business? How do you want to serve people maybe in the next 10, 15 years, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'm right now I'm in the stages of continuing to like grow and expand. So I've
Mhm.
got a couple of team members now branching out though. So it's like a lot of my clients, a lot of my good friends, they are doing different things and we kind of going back and forth. Currently, my team is myself and four other people, and looking to kind of keep that growing and building. And the way that I'm doing that is through coaching, it's
Right.
through growing the podcast, my show, and then
Hmm.
also hosting more live events. So
Yes.
getting people in, teaching workshops, speaking on stages, going to conferences, and connecting with more people. One of my buddies hosts the #1 personal development conference in Connecticut. I spoke there for the past 3 years, and it's always an opportunity to get in front of people, share some knowledge, connect with other individuals, and try to help other people out too. So I'm
Yes.
in a stage now where I'm trying to give give more than I can. How do I multiply myself so that I can help others who are associated through other people?
Right. And what's the best way if people want to reach out? What's the best way? Where do you normally sign up?
Yeah, the easiest way to just touch base or see what's going on or shoot me a message or anything would be probably Instagram, which is just at my name, Rob Tracz, Tracz. Any of the other social platforms, you probably find me. But I also got like a free assessment if anybody wants to check out where they fall in terms of stagnation and burnout. It's a quick, easy questionnaire filled out in like 5 minutes, and it tells you your strength and your weakness. So you have a little bit of that awareness. And you find that at survivingthesidehustle.com slash assessment.
Okay, and we'll make sure all that gets included in the show notes as well. So, Rob, the final thing I do to close out all the shows is I want you to pretend that the elementary school version of Rob has come into the Zoom room. He's bouncing from school to school. He only wants to play video games. He doesn't really want to talk to people, whatever it is. Pretend that that young man is here. Give him some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Yeah, I would say, Rob, dude, there's a lot of things you don't want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of things that you do want to do. You want to keep doing those things that you want to do. You need to do some of these things that you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Got to push yourself. You got to work hard when people aren't looking, and you got to be good. Take care of yourself and be good to others.
That's it. And as regular listeners know, the reason I close out the show with that question, because if you are that person, if you are actually the person that he's talking to, we're here to help you. We're here to push you and understand that even though it may feel like you want to give up, maybe so easy for you to just kind of throw in the towel, don't you do it. Don't do it. All right. There's so much more life that you can live, so many great things that you could be accomplishing with yourself if you just take it another day. Just go another day. That's all we're asking. One more day, one more day, one more day. You stack that up. Eventually, you just start to pull yourself out of whatever tough situation you're in. So, again, Rob, appreciate the work you're doing, man. I'm so glad we were able to connect and stay in touch and all that good stuff. Everyone out there, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.